Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and copy question number 25. Ready? Go. All right, good job. Now we are done. So this one says which best represents the graph of y equals 4x squared minus 8x. You can obviously tell over here that your answer options would be 4 or 5 different graphs, and you have to select the correct graph out of all of them, right? And so I'm just going to show you a method on how you can find the correct answer. There are 2 things that you have to look for, okay? There are 2 things that you have to look for, and they are obviously the y-intercept and then the x-intercept. There are actually more things that you have to look for, but in this question, you only have to look for 2 things, okay? So let's start out with the y-intercept. We talked about this before. The y-intercept is the number that is all by itself, right? So I have 4x squared here and I have negative 8x. Do you see a number by itself, guys? No. So then if you don't see a number by itself, what is the number that we are adding? It's going to be a 0, right? So in this equation, your y-intercept is 0. What about your x-intercept? To find your x-intercept, we gotta factor it and find out what our answer is, okay? So to find the x-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and solve it. To find the x-intercept, by definition, your y value is at 0, right? So 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 8x. Okay, so then we gotta factor this. In order for us to factor this, we talked about it. I want you to look at this term over here, and I want you to look at that term over there. There are 2 terms. And what you're doing is you're looking at it and you're trying to decide what can you divide both terms by? The biggest number that you can divide both terms by. If you tell me 2, that's great, but that's not the biggest number. So yes, you're right, it's 4. So I can divide both by 4. So what that means is I'm going to pull out the 4 and I'm going to open up my parentheses. But then I also have a variable x squared and x. What can I divide both by? Is it x or x squared? It would be just x, okay? Because if I divide both by x squared, this will be 1, but this would not be a regular number. It would be a fraction. It would be 1 over x, and that's not what we want, okay? So now inside the parentheses, we're going to put 4x squared divided by 4x, and so that would be x. And negative 8x divided by 4x is going to be negative 2. Because we said 0 is equal to 4x times x minus 2, we gotta say that 4x is equal to 0 and x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay? A lot of my students do not understand this part. Just remember, when you multiply 2 numbers together and you get a 0, at least one of them have to equal 0. Okay, so I'm going to go over to this side because you guys get confused when I go to a new page, right? So I'm going to say 4x. This is called a zero product property. 4x is equal to 0, and then x minus 2 is equal to 0. Because if 4x is 0, 0 times x minus 2 is 0. And if x minus 2 is 0, 4x times 0 is 0. Okay, so we're going to divide both sides by 4, and we know that 0 divided by any number is always 0. And then over here, we gotta leave the x by itself. So we're going to add 2 to both sides, and x is now equal to 2. So now we have our answer for both. Our y-intercept is 0, and my x-intercept is at 0 and 2. Now if I were to graph this, it's going to look like this. I'm gonna take it to a new page. I can't even draw a straight line. Let's try this again. Maybe I can use an app. No. Yes? Okay. So, ooh, that's a dotted line. I don't want a dotted line. But that's okay for now because I don't know how to fix it. Can you even see it?
Yeah.
It's a weird color. Oh, there you go. I know how to fix it. There you go. So let's say that we have our x-axis and our y-axis, right? So this is how our graph is going to look like, okay? Let's go back. My y-intercept is at 0. What that means is on the y-line, the graph is going to pass through the 0. This is my y-line, y-axis, and this is my x-axis, okay? Now if you go back, my x-intercept is at 0 and 2. What that means is, when you look at my graph, the graph is going to pass through on the x-line 0 and 2. Okay? In other words, I'm going to have a parabola that looks like that. And that is all you have to know for this question in order for you to get it right. Because they have 4 or 5 different graphs and they are all parabolas and they go through different points. But the key for you in getting the correct answer is to figure out what the y-intercept is and what the x-intercept is. Okay? So then, now I want you to go ahead and solve a similar problem, which is going to be 25b. Okay? So please go ahead and copy this question right now. Okay, this one right here. And then go ahead and show me the graph that you have created using the method I've shown you. Ready? Begin. So obviously the first thing you have to do is go ahead and copy this question right here. We're almost done going through every single question on the final. So copy the question, ready, go. Alright, so let's take a look. Which of the following equations will produce a graph that does not, here's a very important word, right, not. That does not intersect the x-axis at any points when plotted on a coordinate plane. You know what that means? This, this is the x-axis, okay? And this is the y-axis. What the question is saying is, can you find a graph that looks like that? Or maybe like this, or maybe like that, okay? Basically, it cannot pass through this red line. Okay, so it does not intersect the x-axis, okay? Well, how do you figure that out, Miss Choi? It's very easy. I don't know if you remember the song, The Quadratic Formula. Let me sing it again. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so here's the thing. The stuff inside the square root. If this is a negative number, then you have an imaginary number I, and therefore this graph is not touching the x-axis. Okay, so the b squared minus 4ac, there you go, it's called the discriminant. This is called the discriminant. Uh-oh, I don't have enough space. There you go, this is all supposed to be stuck together. Discriminant, okay? So when the discriminant b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, what that means is that that is a negative number, then the graph will not be touching the x-axis, okay? So there you go. When the discriminant is, or b squared minus 4ac is a negative number, less than 0, then the graph is not touching the x-axis. Okay, so that's the only thing you have to keep in mind when you solve the problem. And the test is really cute. They're trying to trap you, right? So I'm giving you an example right here, but this is exactly what they do on the test, right? Look at the equations. They look exactly the same. One is 2x squared minus 6x, and then the next one is the exact same, but then they added a 1 here. Over here is all the same, except this one is now a plus 5. And everything is the same, except now this is a plus 3. It's like a trick, okay? So what you gotta do is you gotta figure out a number that if you plug in, you will get a negative for your discriminant, okay? So let's take a look. I'm gonna have to go to the next page. I'm gonna go ahead and find the A, B, and C for just option A, okay? Yes. So now let's take a look at option A. And I'm going to change my color into red. So we all know that this is A. The 2 is A, right? And then we all know that the B is negative 6. What is my C then? 0. Because if there's nothing, it's like adding 0, right? So my A is 2, my B is negative 6, and C is 0. But then for options B, C, and D, my A and B is all the same, but only my C changes from 0 to 1 to 5 to 3. Get it? So now let me go to a new page.
No.
So there you go, just like we talked about. A was 2, okay? And then let's go back because I already forgot. B was what? Negative 6. B was negative 6, and C was 0. But that was for option A. For option B, C, and D, A and B was the same, but C turned into 1, and then 5, and then 3. Okay, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to work on figuring out the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. That is my discriminant. Okay, and we are finding something that ends up being a negative. So let's plug it in. B is negative 6, so make sure you put everything in parentheses. Negative 6 squared minus 4 times A, and A is 2 in parentheses. And then C is 0 in parentheses. Okay, so let's figure this out. Negative 6 squared, because PEM does, you got to do exponents first, right? Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 0 is, 0. 36 plus 0 is 36. Is this a negative number?
No.
No, it's a positive number, so we already know that option A is not the correct answer. So then why don't I move on to option B? Because option B was the same. A was 2, B was negative 6. But what was C? Well, let's go back. For option B, this is not the correct answer. For option B, A, B is the same, but C was 1. Okay? So let's do the same thing. We're going to plug it into b squared minus 4ac. So b is negative 6 squared minus 4, and then a is 2. And then this time c is 1. Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 2 is 8. Times 1 is still negative 8. 36 minus 8 is, even though you don't know how to subtract, you already know a big number minus a small number is still positive, right? And if you really wanted to calculate, this is going to be what? 28, and 28 is a positive number. So you also know that B is not the correct answer. Okay? Now let me tell you right now that C is the correct answer. Okay? Because D is also not the correct answer. As the C gets bigger, you can tell that the back side is going to get bigger. So a positive number minus a big, big number is going to be you subtract them and you keep the symbol for the bigger number. Right? So let's go ahead and take a look at C. B is not it. C is 2, negative 6, and then 5, right? So for option C, we have A is 2, B is negative 6, and then C is 5. So let's go ahead and find the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So instead of B, I plug in negative 6. And then instead of A, I plug in 2 in parentheses. And instead of C, I plug in 5 in parentheses. Negative 6 squared is 30. And then negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. Oh, wow, look. What is 36 minus 40? When we have two different symbols, you subtract. 40 minus 36 is 4. And then you keep the symbol for the bigger number. Oh my goodness, yay, we have a negative number. Our discriminant is a negative number. So if you go back, what did we talk about? When the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, is negative, then the graph is not touching the x-axis. Isn't that what they're asking for? When does it not intersect the x-axis? Right here. Okay? So that will be your correct answer. And I know it seems really crazy, but it's actually quite easy. Now, let's go ahead and do your practice question. Oh, your practice question is not there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you an equation. And I want you to tell me. There you go. Hold on. Let me go ahead and give you a set of different options, A, B, C, D. And then let me give you something like y is equal to 3x squared minus 4x. And then y equals 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. And then instead of, so then go ahead and tell me which one would be the correct answer if these were your choices, the one that I just wrote out for you, okay? Ready? Begin. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is go ahead and copy this question. Ready? Go. Okay, good job. You are done copying. So it says Jonathan used completing the square to find the maximum value of the quadratic expression. And this is what we've been doing like all semester long, right? We completed the square, okay? What is the maximum value of the expression and at what x value does it occur? occur? And I gave you an answer example because your multiple choice options look like this. I don't want you to be confused, okay? Basically, you just have to find the vertex, okay? But your answer example will look like this, -3 when x is equal to -2. In other words, in the form that you recognize, it's supposed to look like this. Because that's the vertex, -2, -3. And I don't want you to be confused because the -3 shows up first. They're trying to tell you that the maximum is -3 when the x is -2. But over here, when we write it in coordinate form, we put the x first and then the y later on. Now, obviously, this is not even the correct answer for this question. I was just trying to show you an example on how it looks like on the test. Okay? So let's go ahead and try and solve this right now, okay? So let's complete the square. I hope you guys remember this. Okay, so -x squared minus 6x plus 4, okay? I think I told you that we cannot have a negative when we find our vertex form. As a matter of fact, we cannot have any number in front of the x squared. So in that case, what do we have to do? We have to go ahead and pull out the -1. And then we have to divide this one and that one by that, okay? So -x squared divided by -1 is x squared. And -6x divided by -1 is positive 6x. And then I said we're going to leave the plus 4 by itself. I hope you remember this. This was at your last test, right? And then there you go. What do we have to do now? Keep the negative. Keep the plus 4, but what we have to do now is x squared. We have the x squared, that box. This is the x and x. And now how many sticks do we have? 6 of them. So if I want to split them evenly, how am I going to put on this side? 3. And now I'm going to put another 3 here. So that way I know I have x plus 3 on this side and x plus 3 on that side. So that means how many little squares I gotta put in, guys? 9. How did I get that? 3 times 3. Okay, so basically I have to add 9. So I'm going to put x squared plus 6x. And then I know I need to add 9. Why did I have to add 9? Because I have to make this big square over here. The formula was very easy. I had to just use the 6, divide by 2, because that's how many I put on the sides. And then I had to square it, because that's how many little squares I need. But because I randomly added 9, I did not randomly add 9. Because I had to add 9 squares to complete the square, I'm going to have to subtract the 9. But when I subtract the 9, I'm coming out of the parentheses, and the parentheses was bound by what? The -1. So I have to multiply the -1 back. And of course, I did not forget the 4, right? So there you go. When I factor this, what was the formula for the big square? It's x plus 3 times x plus 3, right? So here's negative, and then x plus 3 squared, and then 4, and then -9 times -1 is positive 9. So 9 plus 4 is 13. What is my vertex? My vertex, we all know, is going to be at -3, because what has to go inside x to make the parentheses equal to 0? -3. And then my y value of the vertex is going to be what? 13. But then the answer, I said, looks like this, not like that. So you're not going to see an option on your test that looks like this. If you did, it would be too easy, right? So what would your answer be according to the way it shows on the test? It's going to say, yeah, 13 when x equals -3. So please make sure you select the correct answer. I know most of you already know how to do this really well because I tested you numerous times. Most of you know how to do it. If not, I know for sure you know how to make the big square using the little squares and the big squares and the rectangle. So please make sure you select the correct answer. I'm going to give you a practice problem, but we don't have much time, so maybe you should just copy it down and I'm going to move on to the next one, okay? Here you go. Here is your practice question 27B. Hush, thank you. Go ahead and copy this right now, 27B, and then I'm just going to go over 28, our very last question on the final. There are 29 questions, but I'm only going over 28 because one of them, the other one, is a factoring one, the big X, and we already did it. Okay, so you should know how to do it. Okay, so copy 27B. And also 28, okay, because we're going to do 28. Ready? Go. There you go. Hurry up. Okay, so there you go. I want you to go ahead and copy this question. And I know you are done, so good job. Okay, so let's start. Ready? Go. So we have a rectangular piece of land and it measures 18 by 14 and then there's a garden inside, okay? So James has created a cement sidewalk. So this is a sidewalk so we can walk around it and we can see all the beautiful flowers inside the garden, okay? If the garden has an area of 165 square feet, so the area of this garden here is 165 square feet. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't. How wide is the sidewalk? Well, the width of the sidewalks is x feet, okay? So let's think about this. How long is this right here? Well, this is 14 and this is x and this is also x. So how long do you think that would be? The whole thing is 14 and you gotta subtract what? X and subtract x, and that would be the length of this one. So that's going to be 14 minus 2x. So that times this, and the length of this would be the same. This whole thing is 18. And from 18, we got to subtract 2x because we got to subtract the x on this side and the x on that side. And that will give you this. Okay? So when you multiply those two together, you'll get 165. Okay? So now I'm going to have to take you to a new page. 14 minus 2x times 18 minus 2x, and that area of the garden was 165 according to the question. Okay? So in order for you to solve this, there are many different things you can do. The easiest way to solve this is a multiple choice test. So you can go ahead and look at all those answers and plug it into the X and find out which one gives you 165. But the real way to do it is to multiply and factor and all that good stuff. So let's do this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my big box because I got to multiply. In between the two parentheses, I don't see any pluses. That means I got to multiply. So I'm going to put 14 over here, minus 2x over here. I'm going to put 18 over here, and minus 2x over here. And then I got to multiply. 18 times 14, ooh, it's kind of big. What is it, guys? I'm going to do it really fast because I don't have a calculator on me. That's 252. Am I right, guys? Check with your calculator for me. In case I'm wrong, I don't want to be wrong. So 18 times negative 2x is negative 36x. Negative 2x times 14 is negative 28x. And negative 2x times negative 2x is positive 4x squared, okay? So again, we're doing the thing we do all the time. The x squared is all by itself. There's no other ones that look like that. So we have 4x squared. And then we're going to go ahead and combine the x and the x together. So I'm going to copy the x. Negative 36 plus negative 28. It's the same symbol, so we keep the symbol. And when we add the two numbers, it's going to be 64, negative 64, right? And then the number by itself is 252. And that equals what? 165. In order for us to figure out what x is equal to, we got to go ahead and subtract 165 from both sides. And that will give us 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 64x. And then when we subtract over here, let's see, 12 minus 5 is 7. 14 minus 6 is 8. There you go. So it's positive 87. Now what we have to do is the big X. Okay? But before we do the big X, let's see if we could divide anything from all these numbers. Nope, we can't. So we're going to do the big X, okay? And so 4 times 87 is what's going to go on top. So let's do 4 times 87. That's 348. Okay? So 348, and what goes at the bottom? Negative 64. So let's find factors of 348 that will give you a negative 64. Why are you guys laughing? So let's see, obviously 87 and 4 is not going to be it. And they both have to be negative in order for us to get the correct answer. Let's see what else. This is a huge number, so it might take you some time, okay? So there you go. Let's try 6. 6 times... Oh, yay. 58 and 6 is going to work, okay? So I know, like, Miss Choi kind of cheated. I didn't start with 1. But for you guys, I would like you to start with 1. When we multiply two numbers and we get a positive, then they're both supposed to be negative or positive. So I'm going to put negative 58 here. Now I'm going to put negative 6 here. And our leading coefficient is what? 4. So it's going to be 4 over negative 58 and 4 over negative 6. And so we got to simplify. This is 2 over negative 3. And this is going to be 2 over negative 29, right? There you go. So 2x minus, oh, there you go. So 2x minus 29 times 2x minus 3 is equal to 0.
Is that the answer?
No, not yet. So then, now you gotta find the answer, right? So x, you have to say this is equal to 0 and this is equal to 0, okay? So basically your answer is going to be x is equal to 1.5 because you're going to add 3 and divide by 2. And if you do this one, it's going to be 29 over 2, which is 14 point something, and that doesn't make sense because the width of your pathway cannot be bigger than the actual rectangle itself. Okay, so think about that one. And you have, so your answer is 1.5. And I'm gonna finish this because we're in a rush. Bell's about to ring. But if you are still confused, you are welcome to ask me questions. Okay. Have a great day. Happy testing.